Hello, Amber. I hope you enjoyed the first section of the book. This is now the second section. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 11. Monday, 19th of December. The interview room is warm and airless. When DC Gallagher has finished reading Jerry's statement, she looks up and gives me a long, penetrating stare. "Okay, Tate," she says. "Tell us about this security pass." I turn to look at Sarah, who's sitting next to me. She inclines her head and gives it a quick shake. "No comment," I say, although I want to answer the question. I remember flirting with Jerry on the roof terrace that night. Terrace! That evening. It was just a stupid joke. I didn't mean anything, and I wasn't at all upset about it. I didn't even think it was worth mentioning to Sarah. I had nothing to do with the security pass going missing that night. I want to tell the police this, but I know I must listen to my lawyer. She's experienced. She knows what she's doing. This is my first police interview. Sarah, on the other hand, has done this a million times. "Do you remember speaking to Jerry Seeger?" I'm asked. No comment. "What did he say to you?" No comment, I repeat. "Did you flirt with him?" No comment. "Maybe you don't remember. Were you drunk?" No comment, I say again. "Or did you flirt with him deliberately?" asked DC Gallagher. "Did you try to kiss him so that you can get up close to him and steal his security pass?" "Do you have any evidence that my client stole it?" Sarah jumps in quickly. DC Gallagher looks across to her. "There were..." "What?" she continues. Over 100 people at the police party that night." DC Gallagher ignores her and looks back at me. "Where was Jerry's coat when he wasn't wearing it?" Sarah persists. "I'm asking the questions," DC Gallagher restorts. "But only the ones that suit you." "Did you take Jerry's pass from his coat pocket?" DC Gallagher asks me, ignoring Sarah. No comment, I reply. "What did you do with the missing pass, Tate?" No comment. "How did you steal it?" No comment. "When did you steal it?" No comment. "Who did you give it to?" No comment. "Did you keep it and use it to get into the building?" she asked me. "On the night that Madeline Blakely died?" No. Sarah shakes her head at me. "Comment," I add. DC Gallagher looks irritated. "Did you use it to let anyone else in the building?" No comment. "What about..." She scans her notes. "Helen?" she asks. "Helen Jones?" Sarah raises her eyes. She's interested, as am I. "You gave a statement that there was someone with you that night." DC Gallagher reads from the page in front of her. "That you let them into the building. A woman named Helen Jones." "Did you give Jerry Seeger's parts to Helen Jones, Tate?" No comment. DC Gallagher sits back in her seat and smiles. "No, you didn't, because there was no one with you that night." Sarah shoots me a warning glance. "The thing is, Tate, we've checked out what you said in your statement, and you see, what you've told us doesn't make sense. We haven't been able to find any trace of Helen Jones." She enunciates the name acrobatically, as if I've made up something ridiculous. "There's no one of that name living in the Mainscene block you pointed out in Kendrick Place. Cohen Macaulay have no record of a Helen Jones ever work there for them, and Haley Albright's never met anyone of that name." She looks up at me. "How do you explain that?" I heave a sigh. DC Gallagher leans forward, clearly encouraged by my expression. "The truth is, you left the party on your own on that Friday night, didn't you, Tate? And on the Saturday, you came back to 225 Eastcheap, alone. Again." She pauses for effect. "There was no one with you on either occasion, was there, Tate?" No comment, The truth is that there is no Helen Jones. The truth is that you were acting alone. The truth is that you were obsessed with Maddie Blakely's husband. Isn't that right, Tate? I close my eyes to shut her out. DC Gallagher waits until I open them again, and then gazes at me for a long moment before pulling out another sheet of paper from a file on the table in front of her. We have a statement here from Dan Blakely's PA, Hayley Albright. Hayley likes you. She says she's never had a problem with you either personally or professionally, but she mentions that she believed you were obsessed with Dan Blakely. She says that she often caught you watching him. I look down at my hands and pick at the cuticle of my thumb. Oh, circulates. Hayley says, DC Gallagher continues, Dan told her that on one occasion, some personal items, his diary, a family photo in a silver frame, had gone missing from his desk. She peers up at me. Did you steal those items from Dan Blakely's desk, Tate? Did you take those things? You don't have to answer that, Sarah intervenes sharply. DC Gallagher lowers her eyes and continues to read. Hayley says that on one occasion in late August, she dropped off some papers to Dan at home and saw you hiding behind a bush in his garden. On another occasion, in early September, she met him at a restaurant in Soho for a business lunch before driving him to the airport for an overseas trip. When they came out of the restaurant, she saw your green Corsa outside, parked across the street. She doesn't think Dan noticed your car and she didn't mention it because she didn't want to worry him. But she saw you, Tate. She saw you sitting in the driver's seat. She saw you trying to slide down so that she didn't see you. DC Gallagher looks up at me. Have you been stalking Dan Blakely, Tate? Again, you don't have to answer that, says Sarah. You haven't been arrested for theft or stalking, so maybe DC Gallagher would like to get to the point. Are you in love with him? Asked the other officer. DC Heaton, speaking for the first time. Tate, are you in love with Dan Blakely? I bite my lip. Must be tough, she continues gently. Loving someone who, deep down, won't ever love you back. Dan has a daughter, doesn't he? A daughter he thinks the world of. He would never give up his wife and his daughter and his beautiful home to live in an apartment and be a part-time dad. I shrug. What was that, Tate? DC Gallagher pounces. Sarah reaches across the table and places her hand on mine. She squeezes it and looks at me sympathetically while moving her head from side to side. No comment, I say. That must have made you feel pretty desperate, says DC Heaton. DC Gallagher slides Hayley's statement into the back of her notepad. So desperate, she agrees with her colleague, that when you see an opportunity to take Jerry Seeger's pass out of his pocket at the party, you hatched a plan, and the following day you carried it out. You got a taxi, alone, she emphasises, from your address to 225 East Beach, where you'd arranged to meet Maddie Blakely on the roof terrace in the early evening on Saturday. And you used Jerry Seeger's pass to get in. I glance at Sarah again. She's frowning, uncertain. She's wondering why, if I had gone to 225 in Italy to find an earring, as I told her I would need to use someone else's security bars. DC Gallagher notices Sarah's expression. Her own is one of mild pleasure. Your client hasn't explained to you, has she? Explain what? Sarah asks coolly. DC Gallagher smiles. That you need a security pass to move around the building inside 225 East Cheap. You need a pass to go everywhere, from corridors and stairwells to access the office on every floor. Yes, I'm aware of that, Sarah says guardedly. And has she told you that there is a record of everyone coming in and out via all the various places they swiped? Sarah looks at me. I nod guiltily. After a moment she shrugs. I'd have figured that to be the case. Well, Tate was in the building, DC Gallagher says. She gave a statement in which she puts herself in the building that evening, in the lift, in the stairwell, and crucially, on the roof terrace. She admits she was on the roof terrace soon after Maddie Blakely fell. Yes, says Sarah. We know that already. What's your point? Tate's a temporary staff member, DC Gallagher explains with an exaggerated patience. Or was, and as such, and I had to this confirmed by multiple sources as a temporary junior staff member. Tate has never been issued with a security pass. Chapter 12. Witness Statement. Criminal Procedure Rules 16.2 Criminal Justice Act 1967 S9 Court Act 1980. Statement of Kevin Prescott. Occupation Security Officer. I am the above named person. I am employer as a security officer by a company called Sky Guardians Security. I am currently contracted to work as a doorman at 225 East Tube, a multi-office tower block in central London, which is home to a number of different companies. I am an experienced doorman, and although my background is in entertainment security, I have worked in a commercial office environment for the last 4 contracts, and the procedure for getting in and out of the building has been responsibly similar every time. Permanent staff members are given a security pass with their name on it and a photo taken on their first day of work. You need a security pass to get in through the turnstile on the ground floor at the entrance, and also to get from the lift and stairwells to the offices on the different floors. The pass then has to be either renewed at regular intervals or handed in when staff members' employment ends. Different companies have different policies, but none of the companies at 225 East Tube give out security passes to temporary agency staff. Temporary staff members can enter the building through an external door without a pass, as can any visitors, but every day when they come in, they first need to come in through the security desk and sign the visitor's book. They would then be issued with a visitor card on a lanyard, and we would phone up to the relevant company who would send someone down to meet them. We would then let them through the turnstile on the ground floor, and they would be escorted up the stairs. The turnstile on the ground floor has a solid Perpex screen which draws back when you swipe your pass at the reader. Although a staff member would be able to buzz or swipe a visitor or a temporary staff member through the doors to the offices on the floor upstairs, it would be impossible for anyone to get through the ground floor turnstile without their own security pass. It is also impossible for more than one person at a time to get through the turnstile or to swipe someone else in. You have to have your own pass to get through the turnstile, just as you do at a tube station, for instance. There is one other entrance to the building, which is at the lower ground level and the backs of Greystone Way. This is the entrance to the underground car park, and only staff members with a permit pass can enter or exit this way. These measures, combined with a good quality video surveillance system, provide a very high level of security. I would say that it is impossible for anyone who doesn't work in the building to gain access unless, of course, someone has unauthorized use of another staff member's security pass. For this reason, I don't always monitor who is going in and out through the turnstile or the car park entrance, especially at the weekends when I work alone. As I can't be in 2 places at once, I prefer to stay in the office and monitor the whole building live via the camera surveillance system. But I have other duties too, including touring the building at regular intervals, and I can't watch the cameras live during every minute of my shift. At 6 o'clock on a Saturday, I would not expect many staff members to be in the building anyway, and at weekends, staff members are asked to contact us in advance to let us know that they will be in. I had not been informed that anyone would be in the building, and so wasn't expecting anyone to be there that night. Therefore, if anyone I didn't know came in, I would have assumed they were there with the cleaners. but as soon as they had used a security pass, I would not usually have searched or questioned them. On the evening of Saturday the 10th of December, I was on duty at 225 East Cheap as usual. At approximately 7:15 p.m. I was seated in the office, which is in the corner to the left of the desk as you go in. I was watching the security cameras when a woman came into the building through the revolving doors into the lobby. She had a long, dark, wavy hair and a red coat. She was in her mid to late 30s, I would say. She walked over and was waiting by the front desk, so I got up and walked over to the lobby to meet her. She asked me for the directions to St. Catherine Docks near the Tower Bridge, and I gave them to her. She asked if she could use the toilet, and I explained that the toilets are located by the stairwells inside the turnstile and that only staff members were allowed through. She pleaded with me for a moment, saying that she was desperate, but I told her that I couldn't let her in. She then seemed to forget about needing the toilet. She told me she was going to a party at the docks but had got lost. She showed me a location on her phone and I pointed out which route to take. She smiled and said thank you, then told me she liked a man in uniform and asked me what time I finished work. I told her I wouldn't be finished until early hours in the morning. At that point, I was not comfortable with the way the conversation was going and I tried to get her to leave. I said something like, "You'll be tucked up in bed by then." At this, she leaned close to me and said, "You could always come and join me there later if you like." I then told her that she needed to go as I had to get back to work. She continued flirting with me, so I talked to her for a moment longer and then showed her to the door. This conversation definitely happened on Saturday night, the 10th. I know that because of what happened next. I noticed through the glass windows in the foyer that there was a lot of commotion outside. I could see that cars were backing up in the streets and people were getting out them running across the road. I ushered the woman out of the building and locked the revolving doors. I could immediately see that someone had been injured. There was a woman lying on the pavement and a small crowd was around her, maybe 5 people. Someone was kneeling down, trying to give her first aid. Someone else was standing next to her on the phone to the emergency services. I was informed that an ambulance was on its way. I immediately took charge of the situation and asked everyone to stand back. Other security officers arrived to assist from some of the nearby shops and bars. We worked together to secure the scene. We asked the pedestrians to move away and we directed the traffic to reverse back into the turn again lane and out onto Greystone Way. I did not see where the woman with dark hair who had come into the building went. However, I was at one point approached by a female member of the public who asked for my help. The woman who approached me was in her 60s, perhaps, and had short grey hair and glasses. She was gripping my arm of another woman who was of a medium build, mid to late 30s, with long fair hair and wearing a budgie puffer jacket. The older woman told me that this younger woman was a witness to what had happened inside the building, that she had been with the woman who had fallen and was trying to leave the scene. I told the younger woman that she had to stay and talk to the police. I took her arm and she tried to shrug me off. She then started screaming at me to let go. I told her that if she stayed right here and didn't move, I would let go of her arm. She agreed that she would. I then kept her in my sight until the police arrived and I pointed her out to them. I saw them take her away in a police car. I have since been told that she is a temporary staff member at CPF, one of the companies at 225 East Cheap, which operates on levels 12 to 19. I'm told that her name is Tate Kinsella. I don't remember having seen her before, but I worked that evening and weekend shifts and I don't tend to see many staff workers that work there during that day. However, I can confirm that I have checked the records for past 4 months that she has worked there and there is no record of security pass having been issued in that name. The police at the scene later told me that the woman who fell from the roof had died. They said they were not sure what kind of investigation this is and asked me to preserve the CCTV footage for the time period, which I did. I did not immediately check the footage myself, as I know that there are security cameras on the roof. Also, as I mentioned, while I know and recognise some of the staff that work at the US law firms who tend to work during weekday evenings, I don't know many of the day staff from the bank and might not have been able to recognise them in any event. However, I was not concerned with this, as I knew that there was no visitors inside the building and that all staff present on that time of the incident would be traceable and identifiable from both the footage and from log of their movements using their employee security passes. In respect of the CCTV footage, I consider myself to be suitably trained to operate the surveillance systems and also to produce copies of the footage from the police as needed. However, I had spoken to my superior at SGS and we have agreed that, given the nature and seriousness of the incident that evening, I would leave it until the morning so he could come down and do it himself. I did not at any stage attempt to play it back or produce copies for the police. As far as I am aware, the time and date on the system are correct. I did not turn off the cameras on the ground and lower grounds of the car park, nor am I aware of them having been turned off. Later that evening, at some time after 10 p.m, I was in the office when a man arrived. I know him to be Daniel Blakely, who is the head of IT at CPF. He made me aware that it was his wife who had fallen from the roof earlier that evening, and he asked to see the CCTV footage of the relevant period. I told him that I couldn't show it to him as the police had asked me to preserve it and I didn't want to interfere with the investigation. I can confirm that there was a disagreement between us, but I do not wish to say anything further about this. Dan Blakely is a grieving man whose wife had just died in terrible circumstances, and I do not wish to make matters any worse for him than they are already. Further to the above, I can confirm that I was also on duty on the evening of Friday 9th of December. I was on the desk all evening checking passes. I do not remember any ex-staff member coming into the building and asking me to be let up to the party. In any event, I would never let anyone into the building if they did not have a security pass. They would first have to sign the visitor's book and someone from the company would have to come down to collect them. I have checked the visitor's book from the evening of Friday the 9th of December and can confirm that no one who didn't work there had signed in. This is what I would have expected, as a party was for staff only and there were no guests invited. This statement is true to the best of my knowledge and belief. I am willing to attend court if necessary. Signed, K. Prescott, date 11th of the 12th, 2022. Chapter 13. Monday, 19th of December. Sarah follows me into the consultant's room, closes the door and leans up against it. I slide into my usual seat on the bench at the table and watch her silently. So, what was that? Sarah continues to stand in the doorway, frowning at me, hugging her laptop at her chest defensively, as if she's not sure whether to stay or go. I put my hands in my head in my hands. I'm sorry. Why? She looks back at me, her expression incredulous. As I look up again. Why would you not tell me that temps don't get a security pass? And why wouldn't you realise that the police would know that? I had a security pass. It just wasn't yours? I look at her for a moment, thinking hard. I'm trying to help you, Tate, she says firmly. That's what I'm here for, but I can't represent you properly if I'm the only person in the room who doesn't know the most basic of facts. I'm sorry, I say again. You do realise, she persists, that the police will have a record of every pass used in that building that evening. They haven't told us whose yet, but it's fairly obvious that Jerry Seeger is going to be one of them. I didn't use Jerry's pass, I tell her. So whose did you use? I hesitate. Temp one. temp one? It's a contractor's pass, I say. It's registered as temp one. The security guard said temps don't get given passes. Contract staff get given them. Cleaners, construction workers, anyone who needs them. If the bosses ask, they give them out. It's not as cut and dried as Kevin says. But the passes have photos, names. The permanent ones do. She watches me for a moment. Who gave it to you? Dan, I confess. About a month before it happened. He gave it to me so that I could get in and out of the hospital appointments without having to go through security every time. Hospital appointments? It's just a heart palpitation thing. It's not important. And there will be record of it? I look up. Of what? That someone used a temp one pass that night? Absolutely, yes. So why didn't you just tell them that? Tell me that. I shouldn't have used it, I explained. Not at the weekend. I thought if I told anyone, I'd get Dan into trouble. More trouble than you're already in? Look, I told you that I was in the building, I point out. I thought that was enough. I knew I was going to have to explain what I'd done, what I was doing there. I didn't know I'd need to explain how I got in. Okay, but when Jerry C. your pass went missing, I didn't know it had gone missing. Sarah hesitates. Didn't you? No, I say empathetically. That was the first time I heard of it, and whoever took it out of his pocket that night, it definitely wasn't me. He wasn't even wearing his coat when I came out onto the terrace. He's lying? Not lying, no, but he's mistaken. He was drunk. Everyone was. He was in his shirt sleeves. He was hot. And did you try to kiss him? Not that I remember, but I could have done. I remember talking to him, flirting with him. Like I said, we'd all drunk a lot. I was missing Dan. I may have said something to Jerry that he took the wrong way, and then Haley's found out I was in the building that night Maddie died. Oh wait, suddenly she remembered all that stuff about me. It's not true. No! I hesitate. Okay, so I did take the photograph. I was cleaning his desk and I accidentally knocked it off. I was too embarrassed to tell Dan, so I thought I'd just take it and get the glass replaced and put it back before he noticed. What about his diary? I stare at the table in front of me. He was working from home a lot around that time. I just wanted to make sure of the note of all the board meetings so that I knew when he would be in. I was going to put it back. Did you stalk him? Definitely not. Haley doesn't know we were in a relationship, I explain. She's seen a few things and got the wrong end of the stick. So when she saw you at the house that time, it was her I was hiding from, not him. Same as the time outside the restaurant. We'd agreed I'd take him to the airport that she offered. He couldn't tell her he already had a lift, that I was waiting outside. I didn't know she was going to be there, so I hid. Sarah eyes me thoughtfully. What about Helen? Everything you told me is true, I insist. She was there at the party. Someone had to have let her in. She phoned me the next day. Look, I told you. We got a cab together. She told me she lost her earring. That she lost her job at Cowan Macaulay. Right up until she got into the building, everything's true. Except that obviously I didn't swipe her in. No, she says. Because apparently that's not even possible. I look up her pentingly. Did you even try? I shake my head. I left her in the lobby. It was like you said. I didn't know her. I didn't feel comfortable. She gave me a description of an earring and I left her there and went in to look for it on my own. She makes a persevering face. I didn't know the passes only let in one person. I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. Tate, you lied, Sarah says. You lied to the police. And once you did that, that's when you start to build a case against you. The moment you get caught out in a lie, it casts doubt on everything else you say. I swear to God, I pleaded, my eyes filling with tears. It wasn't me who killed Maddie. Whoever was up there on the roof with her when she fell, it wasn't me. So, why lie? I panicked, and once I'd said it, I didn't know how to go back. She waits for me. When I found out that it was Maddie who died, I explained, I knew I was in big trouble. I was in the building, I was having an affair with her husband. The police were bound to find out that sooner or later. I knew straight away that this would put me in the spotlight on me. But you told me you didn't find out that it wasn't Maddie until later. I put my head in my hands. Teardrops plod on the tabletop. I use my sleeve to wipe them away. After a moment, I feel the table move. Sarah slides onto the bench opposite me and places her laptop on the table, shrugging her bag from her shoulder and dropping it on the floor. When did you know it was Maddie? She asked me softly. I saw her shoe, I sobbed. I was in the police car and I saw her shoe. She opens her laptop, still looking at me. It was a trainer, a white trainer, I continue. They picked it up and put it in the evidence bag right in front of me. I was sitting there, looking through the window screen of the police car at it, and it suddenly hit me. Helen was wearing heels. Red slingback with a killer heel. She was all dressed up, as if she was going back out for the evening. But this wasn't a slingback, it was a white trainer. And so I remember thinking, that isn't right. And then I remember that the bag I'd seen hanging on the railing was it looked like a Gucci, pink and grey. It looked familiar, but it wasn't Helen's. I kept asking myself, where have I seen that bag? Sarah waits. And then it came to me in a flash, Maddie. She'd come onto the office a few weeks earlier. She'd come in to see Dan and she was carrying that bag. I liked it and I asked her whose it was and she said, mine. And I laughed and said, I meant which designer? And she said, the one who makes all the fake designer handbags. The name escapes me and I laughed again. I look up at her. It was Maddie's bag and it was Maddie's shoe. Sarah nods. So, when you told me that you found out at the police station that it was Maddie, that wasn't true either. I hung my head. I knew I was in serious trouble. I needed you, to believe that there was someone else there in that building besides me. I swear, I was going to tell them the truth. When the police arrived, I still thought it was Helen who had fallen. I thought she'd gotten into the building somehow and, that's what I thought had happened. But then I saw the shoe. I closed my eyes and I freaked out. I threw up with shock. And when the cops started asking me questions, I carried on as if I still thought it was Helen. Afterwards, I wanted to come clean, but I knew I'd be even more trouble. I knew how it would look. Well, in all honesty, it doesn't look great now, Tate, Sarah says. You've been caught out in a lie about what happened inside the building, and witnesses say they had to stop you leaving the scene. They misunderstood, I protest. I was trying to get her to Helen. At that point, I thought it was Helen. They had to hold me back because I was trying to get closer to her, not because I was trying to run away. If I'd known that it was Maddie, if I'd done anything wrong, why would I even tell the police that I had been in the building? Arguably, she says, at that point, you still thought there would be CCTV. I fall silent, looking back at her. What are you saying? There's a further silence, and then she says, I'm saying that the police might wonder if you had something to do with what happened with the CCTV. No, I protest in horror. When would I have done that? How would I have done that? How would I even know how to reset it? She's silent, still. I look at her and begin to cry again. I didn't kill Maddie. You have to believe me. It doesn't matter what I believe, Tate. Sarah says, it will come down to what the police can prove. At the moment, the case against you is largely circumstantial. But what you say to the police can make all the difference. If a suspect lies about what happened at the crime scene, the police, and more importantly, the jury, are going to want to ask themselves why. But there was someone else in the building, I protest. There had to be. How can I have been using both Temp 1 and Jerry Seeger's security pass? You're sure about this? Sarah asked me. That there will be a record of a pass for Temp 1 inside the building. They'll find Temp 1 there, I insist. I promise you, someone else had to be using Jerry's pass. I wrung my tongue over my dry lips, and I think it was Helen. Helen, she repeats. Yes, I lean towards her. Helen. She was at the office party. She had loads of opportunity to steal it. In fact, she could have stolen 100 security passes that evening. It was probably completely random that it was Jerry's. All of our coats were hanging up on the hooks near the bar. Anyone could have stolen it, obviously, but everyone else at the party on Friday night worked there already had a pass. The only person I saw in the building on that Saturday was Helen, and now it looks as though the security guard saw her too. Sarah nods, as if she keeps expecting this. So, that was Helen, the member of the public who came into the reception and flirted with the security guard. Dressed up in her long coat and slingbacks, I agree, all ready for a party on the docks. Except that she wasn't going to a party on the docks, because she came in the building in a taxi to look for an earring with me. Sarah moves away from me slightly. But if Helen was in the reception talking to the security guard when Maddie fell, how could she have been the one who pushed her off the roof? She couldn't, I say. But isn't it a bit convenient that she distracted the guard at the exact moment Maddie fell? Her eyes fixed on mine. The security guard is lying, I say. He wasn't trying to get rid of her. He was flirting back with her. All that stuff about you'll be tucked up in bed by then. It doesn't sound like that sort of thing you say when you want someone to go away, she agrees. So, if he'd lied about that, then maybe he's lied about everything. Maybe he did let her go into the user toilet, or maybe she sneaked in with Jerry's pass. Either way, he took his eye off the ball and is covering his tracks. That's what I think. Maybe what really happened is that she sneaked in after I did and took the lift up to the roof. And then, when the security guard realises that he'd let a complete stranger in the building and someone had died, he went into the office and destroyed the CCTV to cover his back. Sarah looks at me thoughtfully for a moment. It's an interesting theory, she says finally. But it's just that. A theory, she says. Without any evidence, that's what happened. It's not something we can realistically put forward as a defence. I drop my head, study my fingernails. So what happens now? My advice doesn't change, Tate. You made a statement denying you saw Maddie that night. You told him about Helen. Now you continue to exercise your right to silence. We go back in, find out what else they've got, and take it from there. Okay. I agree. She stands up. I'll get you some water. The door opens and I hear a movement outside. I sit with my head in my hands and wait. A minute later, she returns with 2 plastic cups and places them in front of the table of me. She closes her laptop and then picks up a bag and coat. Ready? She says. I nod. Feeling okay? She asks me. Yep. My tone indecisive. But my gut twists a little and I follow her out the door and down the corridor to the interview room. I'm really sorry about all the lies I've told her. After all, she's working so hard for me. Chapter 14. The second interview is over 2 hours long. The third is closer to 3. The questions are interminable. How well did I know Maddie? How did I lure her into the building? What was I wearing? What colour were my eyes? What did I have for breakfast this morning? What did I watch on TV? But no phone, for instance, or CCTV evidence is produced. Sarah's questions about Emily's phone are either ignored or deflected. Little more is revealed. Shouldn't I have been told them? I asked Sarah between interviews. That I had nothing to do with Jerry's security pass? Not unless you can prove that you did have anything to do with it. She tells me. They have to prove it. You don't have to disprove it. Like I said before, the law said it's on them, not on you. Jerry Siegel was far from certain at that point during the evening his pass went missing, and right now, they haven't come up with any evidence that says it was you. But I'm innocent. If you're innocent, then they won't be able to prove that you took it. As I said, if your pass, Temp 1, is also detected as being inside the building, there has to be someone else inside there too, and without CCTV, they will always have no way of knowing for sure if either of these pass holders was you. Frustrated by my silence, the two detectives stretched their third interview out until way after midnight, pausing at length between questions and appearing wounded by my no-comment responses, as if they were deserving of a confession or, at the very least, a definite reply. Eventually, DC Gallagher looks at the clock on the wall and she says ending to the interview. She presses a button and ejects the DVD disc one by one and puts them back into their cases, then seals them up with a large sticky label on which she's written my name and the time and date in thick black park pun. She and DC Heaton walks us back to the custody area and disappear through the side door. It's going to CPS, Sarah tells me back in the consultant's room. That means I've finished interviewing you for now. They'll send off your files to a lawyer who will make a decision in the next few hours as to what happens next. I ask anxiously, and what will that be? Well, she says, if they don't have enough evidence to charge you, they'll bail you. And if they do have enough evidence, then it will be a charge and... She hesitates. A remand. My heart thumps. Remand? You'll be taken to magistrate's court, and then to a crown court, and there that we can apply for bail. And would we get it? Bail in murder cases is rare, she says. But let's take this one step at a time. They may not have enough evidence to charge you, or, she says, watching my expressions, they might. And we can deal with it. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it. In the meantime, stay strong and try and get some rest. I say goodbye to her and I'm led back to my cell, where I lie down on the narrow bed, dazed and exhausted by the day's events. I close my eyes, but the coldness of my toes, the deteriorating odour of my thin plastic mattress, the banging of the cell doors by the other inmates, none of this is conducted to sleep. Instead, I watch the shadows move across the ceiling and listen to my neighbours shouting to each other, the steady pounding of fist and foot against the metal almost lulling me to sleep. After a while, every time it goes quiet, the banging starts up again, and each time my heart starts thumping with it, and then, for the millionth time, I see Maddie falling, her arms flailing wildly as she plummets from the roof and sails through the air before thudding like a sack to the ground. Hours later, after the banging and shouting stopped, I'm still awake and thinking in the dark when the door rattles open. A shaft of bright light enters the cell. I quickly lift my hand to shield my eyes. Up you get, says the custody assistant. My heart flickers. What time is it? 5:15. I swing my legs to the ground and am led along the corridor of cells into the custody area and up to the desk. I stand for a moment, blinking in glare and curling my toes to imitate the strange sensation of cold, hard lino beneath my paper shoes. After a moment, the desk sergeant stops typing, looks up, and tells me to listen carefully. I'm releasing you on bail, he tells me. The tension drops from my body. My knees buckle slightly and I clutch the edge of my desk. With a number of conditions, he continues, glancing at me over the top of the computer monitor. If you have a problem with any of the conditions, we'll get your lawyer on the phone. Okay, I say. 1, he announces. You are to live and sleep at your home address, flat 312, Park East, Sussex Garden. 2, you are to have no contact with the following people: Daniel Blakely, Jerry Seeger, Kevin Prescott, Haley Albright, Sharon Seeger. Sharon Seeger, I query. Jerry's wife? Why? She's a prosecution witness, he informs me. No contact or indirect. That includes all form of electronic communication, including social media. Do you have a problem with that? No, I just don't understand what she has to do with the case against me. 3, the sergeant continues, ignoring my question. You are not to enter 225 East Street, EC1. Not a problem. I agree. And 4, you're not to go to 52 Packerton Street, installation. Dan's address. He points to an electronic signature pad in front of me and hands me a pen. Sign here, please. He then pushes a large plastic bag towards me containing a few belongings I came with. Oh, and your sister called. I look up sharply. Which one? He peers at the screen. Fern. I groan. She wanted to know if you were okay. We told her that you were fine and that you'd be on your way home soon. Okay, thank you. It's pitch black and cold outside. I'm still wearing just a tracksuit the police gave me. They've given me back my purse, but I've no coat or phone. I walk briskly until I get my bearings and then head for the tube station, where the first trains of the days are running. I get on the Hammersmith and City line to Paddington and then walk the short distance home. It's still early and the streets is empty and silent. The windows of the block unit. I enter the building, grateful that my neighbours aren't up yet to see me sulking home in a police tracksuit. Getting bail, avoiding the raid wings of the nearest women's prison, is a colossal relief, and one that I honestly wasn't expecting. Things could have gone a whole lot worse for me, I know. I push my key into the lock and open the door. The flat is warm. There is no sign of George. I check her food bowls. They're almost full, but the food is fresh, which means she's been here. I breathe yet another sigh of relief. I scribble a quick note to say thank you, run up 2 flights and push it under the neighbour's door. I then go back down and take a long, hot shower, scrubbing every inch of my hair and body, even though my wrists are swollen from the handcuffs and aching like mad. I put on a pair of clean pyjamas and throw the police tracksuit into the bin liner. In the bedroom, I fold and cut 2 pieces of tuba grip and tug one gently on each wrist. I then swallow a cup of painkillers and lower my aching body into bed. For a few delicious moments, as I drift off to sleep, I allow myself to savour the buzzing electrical silence of soft scents in my clean pillow, the sensation of the crisp cotton sheets against my legs. As if from far away, I hear the clatter of George's cat flap, and I allow myself a small amount of elation, or at least something that stretches way beyond life. George is home. I'm home. I've been so lucky, so goddamned lucky. But I mustn't get ahead of myself. I need to stay focused. This is just the beginning. I am absolutely no doubt that the most perilous step in all of this is yet to come. Part 3. Chapter 15. Tuesday, the 20th of December. It's just after 7:30 in the evening when my sister Fern arrives. I'm sitting on the sofa with George, eating pizza. I flick on the TV. It's EastEnders. I turn the volume up loud before going out to the hall to let her in. Why didn't you call me? She says as soon as the door swings open. She pushes past me, her trademark channel pervading the hallway as she tugs off her Armani riding boots one by one and marches into the living room. Hello, Fern, I say to the empty hallway. Nice to see you. Why don't you come in? Josh, my nephew, grins and steps in after her. He's 15 and tall, over 6 foot, but gangly and awkward with it. I can tell he likes girls, but he also finds that exaggerating. As a member of unspeakable sex, I'm conscious that hugging him might be too intimate, so I tap him on the cheek instead. In response, he taps his own cheek. then moves his head playfully as I reach up on tiptoes to kiss him. I step backwards and trip over Fern's boots, and Josh lets out a chuckle. I laugh too. It feels good. A release. I realise that I haven't laughed in a while. Nice French, I remark. It's new, isn't it? He nods. I'm growing it. Great, I say. It will be the perfect place to keep your head lice. Yeah, you want some? He steps forward, shaking his thick curly fringe at me. I duck, dodging him, and we laugh again. Fern appears back in the hallway and glares at us, tiny but fearsome in her stocking feet. Her long blonde hair is swept back underneath an Alice band that makes her forehead appear much larger than I remember. She unhooks and shrugs off the cape poncho blanket that she's wearing and hands it to me. It's soft and inexpensive. I look around for somewhere safe to put it, imagining Fern's face when she sees the cat snuggling into it, her claws tugging at the threads. Oh, give it here, Fern says sharply and snatches it back from me. She struts off into the living room again. Josh kicks off his trainers and we follow her inside. Josh's eyes land on the pizza. Want some? I pick up the plate and hold it out to him. He takes a slice and sits down on the sofa. Fern has her hands over her ears. For crying out loud, she shouts. Do something about this racket. I pick up the TV remote from the coffee table and turn off the table. Off tape! Turn it off! She snaps. We need to talk. I can't believe you watch this rubbish anyway. I like to keep up with what's happening in the soaps, I say. You never know. You never know what? I shrug. Josh says, through a mouthful full of pizza. She needs to know what's going on with her case. She gets the part. I smile at him gratefully. Though, I know this will infuriate Fern. How can you even think about that? She asks me. You've just been arrested by the police and you're sitting here, eating pizza and watching TV, like nothing's having happened. I have to eat, Fern, I say. It's just pizza. You can order yourself a pizza, she points out, but you can't pick up the phone. The police took my phone. Don't give me that tape. You're allowed to call from the police station. Yes, a call. You're only allowed one. So, who'd you call? She asks huffily. Because Blair and Heath didn't know anything about it, and Sky only found out when she phoned your office and they told her that you don't work there anymore. And then, finding out you've been arrested. Honestly, I nearly fell over when Sky told me. The trouble you've put us to, but no, not a thought for anyone else. This is so freaking typical of you. My neighbour, I say. Her brows snap together. What? I called my neighbour. I needed her to look after George. Fern continues to look puzzled. That's the cat. Oh, sorry. That's the cat, Mum, Josh says. Well then, after you got out, Fern says. And don't tell me you only just got home because I phoned the police station at lunchtime and they told me you'd left hours ago. They took my phone, I remind her. Momentarily defeated, Fern lowers herself down onto the puff near the window and places her cape poncho blanket across her lap. So, what'd you do? She asks after a moment. The police won't tell us anything. They're not allowed to. Why on earth not? I don't know. Data protection? I might not have wanted to know, I say provocately. I might have thought it wasn't any of your business. Fern's face tightens. Is that what you think? That it's none of my business? I exhale loudly and sit down onto the sofa next to Josh. I'm not saying that. Fern tugs at the gold chain around her neck with a manicure fingernail and straightens the collar of her blouse. So, what was it then? She asks finally. Did you steal something? No, Fern, I didn't steal anything. Then what? She asks. What'd you do? I didn't do anything, I told her. I've been framed. I've been set up. A woman fell from the roof of the building where I work. Josh gapes at me. They both do. The office was closed, I explain. It happened at the weekend last weekend. She was attacked with a broken bottle. They think she was pressed. Oh my frickin' word, Fern whispers. And they think it was you? I nodded. I was in the building when it happened. Why? Why were you there? Why? What were you doing there? Long story. But I didn't attack her and I didn't push her. So, who did? Fern looks frightened. I don't know, I say, but it wasn't me. Is she dead? She fell from the 25th floor, I say. She didn't survive that. Fern puts her hand over her mouth. Oh my goodness. The poor woman. Did you know her? A little, I say. Not well. But why were you in the building? Fern asks. And what was the woman doing on the roof? It's a roof terrace, I explain. They think she went there to meet someone. They think she went to meet me, but she didn't. I wasn't there when she fell. And this happened when? The Saturday before last. So, why were you in the office on a Saturday? I thought you were just an office junior, I sang. I got a phone call, I explained, from a woman I met at a party there the night before. I tell the story again about Helen and the earring, the taxi journey to the building, losing Helen inside. Fern looks at me intently. And that's all they have against you? That you were somewhere inside the building when she fell? Pretty much, I say, neglecting to mention my romantic involvement with the victim's husband, my misdirection of the investigation, my lies to the police. It's all circumstance. Oh, sorry. Fern continues to look at me for a moment, taking it in. I can't tell if she's on my side or not. It almost as if she wants to be, is trying to be. I sense it could go either way. But there was a noise out in the hallway, a clicking sound in the kitchen. We all hear it. Fern heads jerks towards the door. What was that? Nothing, I say quickly. There's somebody in your flat. It's nothing, it's no one. The front door closes. Fern leaps up, walks over to the door and peers out onto the hallway. Someone just left your flat, she said accusingly. What's going on, Tate? Who was it? It was my neighbour, I tell her. She needed to use the bathroom. Why would your neighbour need to use your bathroom? Why can't she use her own bathroom? I hesitate. It's the plumbing. I say it's fucked. Josh laughs. Fern winces. She hates bad language. Sorry. I say. I don't know the word for when your plumbing isn't buggered. Josh laughs again. Fern sits back down. Something's going on with you, Tate. Something's not right. You're on bail for... She trows off. What are you on bail for? Murder. Her face falls, as if this is a revelation. She says softly, as if to herself, My God, and yet you don't seem to be taking this seriously at all. Give me a break, Fern. I put my face in my hands. I am taking it seriously. But I've had the week from hell. I'm relieved to have got bail. I'm tired, and I just need a break from all the misery, that's all. So is this the same neighbour you called from the police station? Yes, I nod through my fingers. And who is she to you? My neighbour. But she's just my neighbour. A friend. So why wouldn't she come in and say hello before she left? I don't know, I say desperately. Maybe she was in a hurry. She looks at me for a moment. You're up to something, I can tell. Fern, please, I say. I'm begging you. I've had hours and hours of questioning. I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. The room falls silent. Right, Fern says. Well, we need to get you a lawyer, don't we? I look up. I already have one. Not a legal aid lawyer, she says. A proper lawyer. She is a proper lawyer, I say. She's great. It's thanks to her I got bail. So what's she doing right now, then? I say, I don't know, eating pizza, watching EastEnders, having a nice, relaxing evening if she's lucky, having spent the best part of the last 24 hours locked up with me. Getting our buttocks numbed to budgie on cold, hard chairs in police interview room. Yeech. Josh grimaces, presumably at the thought of my buttocks. There's nothing we can do now, I tell them both. I just need to wait. Fern frowns. You can't just rest your laurels, you know. I allow a sort of laughter. That's not a joke, Tate. Sorry, I muttered. I thought laurels was an emphasis for buttocks. You know, like how you say freaking instead of fucking. Josh laughs. Just stop talking, says Fern in a worn out voice. I do as I'm told. You're on bail, she continues after a moment. All that means is that you don't have enough evidence against you, yet. Which means they're looking out for it right now. Which means you need to prepare your defence. It doesn't work like that. You don't get a legal aid until they charge you. Then you have to pay. I shrug. I don't have any money, you know that. I know you don't. She looks at me reticently. I'm going to help you out. Give me your lawyer's phone number. If she's as good as you say, she can make this go away. I look back at her shocked. Are you serious? You're offering to pay for a lawyer for me? Yes, I'm offering to pay for a lawyer for you. And there's no need to be like that. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Why would you want to do this with me? Because you need help, and I'm your big sister. Whatever you think, I've always been here for you. I almost want to laugh again. The interest in me and welfare is unprecedented. Fern has never given me money. Over the past 20 years, she's barely given me the time of day. But as I look back at her, I realise she's close to tears. I'm sorry, I say finally. If you really mean it, then that's incredibly generous of you. Fern opens her handbag, takes out a complete mirror and dabs at each eye with a forefinger before snapping it shut. It's not going to be a free ride, Tate. I'm flat out at the moment. It's my busiest time of the year. And I could do with some help at Scott Street. I have to put you in the kitchen, she says. Given your situation, I can't risk having you front of house. You want me to work in your hotel? I asked, stunned. You need a job, don't you? Yes, I admit. Well, who else is going to take you on right now? You'd have to tell them you're on bail and what are you on bail for? You'd have to, Tate, she insists, as I open my mouth to protest. And don't worry, I'll pay you, as well as paying your legal costs. Fern, but there's a catch. My eyes meet hers. I want to sit in on every meeting you have with a solicitor. There's no need for that, I protest. Yes, there is. I groan. Why? Because you need me, she says, and I need to keep an eye on you. And if I'm going to keep an eye on you, I need to know what's going on. I look at her, thinking it through. That's got to be the worst deal ever, I put out. For you, I mean. The lawyer will be expensive. You can get staff from the agency. Why would you want me? Because you're in trouble, Tate. Fern closes her eyes for a moment and breathes deeply. You're lost. Even I can see that. I glance across at Josh, embarrassed at the turn of conversation has taken, but he grins and says, I'm going to be working at Scott Street over Christmas too. Come on, Tay-Tay, it'll be fun. His old baby name, for me, makes my heart flip a little. I look across at Fern, who, like Josh, is now smiling faintly, encouragingly back at me. Okay. Thank you. I agree. When they've gone, I go into the bedroom, pull my new phone out from under my pillow and take it off mute. I tap on the messages. Sorry about that. She never seems to come to see me. Typical. Back comes the reply. Did she know it was me? No, but she heard you leave. Sorry. Try to be quiet. It's okay. What does she want? She knows I got arrested. She wants to pay for my lawyer. She wants to sit in all the meetings. Are you serious? Yeah, but don't worry, I'll deal with it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. You must be exhausted. I am. Get some sleep. Yeah, speak tomorrow. Thanks for sorting out the phone. Least I can do, Tate. Least I can do, T. Must have been a nightmare. Some kisses are tapped out. One for the team. I type and send some kisses back. Chapter 16. My day at Fern's Hotel begins at 8, after the breakfast shift has got underway. My role is to unstack the trays that Josh and the other waiters bring me, and to sort the dirty crockery and cutlery into plastic crates. before rinsing them off with a dish hose. I then push the crates over the convoy belt where they are moved through a machine and blasted with scalding water, ready for one of us to unstack onto rows of stainless steel shelving after they've emerged on the other side, steaming hot, dry and shiny. I've done worse jobs. Such is the lot of a resting actress. But lifting the crockery and crates makes my wrists ache. The dish hose has fierce slashback effects, so that every time I taser a stubborn puddle of bear's sauce and caked on tiramisu, I end up with small particles of it on my neck, in my hair, and, if I'm not careful to shut it, in my mouth. But in counterpoint to the bleakness, she has brought me here. I'm made to feel welcome by the kitchen staff, whose cheerful banter and song, along with the Christmas music playing through the speakers, keeps me from sliding into introspection. The restaurant is busy, and the time flies by. My first appointment with Sarah is booked for 4 p.m. on the Thursday. When Fern pushes open the swing door to the kitchen, I'm momentarily surprised to see her, even though the arches of my feet are telling me that my shift must be over by now. "Come in then," she says, holding the door open for me. Fern's wearing an expensive navy blue suit and matching stilettos, and her hair is wound up in a stylish French knot. I, by contrast, am wearing trainers and jeans and a plastic apron, and my hair is straggly mess. I'm well used to feeling like a pauper to Fern's princess whenever she is around me, but seeing her now, like this, dressed up and in charge of everything, including me, reminds me actually of how far she's come. We both grew up in a council estate in Lewisham. My parents were poor and we had very little, but for my brothers and sisters this was a springboard for which they would fly high. My brother Blair sold his company at the right time and, to a degree, got lucky, but Fern has worked exceptionally hard, I realise, and has achieved so much. As I follow her through the softly carpeted dining room where Josh and 2 other staff members are hoovering and laying tables for dinner. Instead of being envious and resentful of Fern's achievements, as I have in the past, I feel sudden intense pride in her. I realise that it's a far nicer feeling to have. The reception area is vast and open, the wooden floor gleaming. The same Christmas music is playing, and there is a huge tree standing floor to ceiling in the corner, beautifully adorned with silver baubles, turquoise ribbon, and fairy lights. I thought Fern's gaze passed the clusters of soft seating and tables of huge open fireplace where Sarah is seated, and she sees us. She closes her laptop, then gets up from the sofa, reaches for her bag, and crosses the room. Fern directs us towards the lift, and we take it up to the 5th floor where Fern's office is. "Thanks for coming," says Fern to Sarah as we follow her down the corridor. "I'm so busy right now. This is easier for us. We really appreciate this, don't we, Tate?" "Yes, thanks. It was good for you to come," I agree. Fern opens the door to her office. The room is large and luxurious. The furnishings expensive: flock wallpaper, a thick plush carpet, a solid oak desk next to the sash window overlook in the garden, green leather wingback armchairs beside the log fire. Fern offers her a desk chair to Sarah and arranges seats for us opposite. I sink down into mine and glance at my sister, who's plucking a pen on a pen holder and pulling a notepad from a pile on the corner on the desk. I feel guilty for taking her money, but at the same time wary. She's going to tackle this with the same earnest she brings to everything she does. If things were different, I would be glad to have her on my side. "Okay," Sarah says, opening her laptop. "The first thing we need to think about is whether we want to ask for a second post-mortem." My guts twist. "No," I said quickly. Fern raises eyebrows. "It's standard procedure," Sarah says, "to get our own expert to establish the cause of death. To be sure we're happy with the police coordination finding. We know why she died. She fell from the roof. 25 floors. She had a heart attack." Even so, Sarah says, there might have been something else, some insidious finding or other medical issue that's important. No, I say again, I can't do that to Dan, to Emily. I can't be the reason they can't bury her. A lump rises in my throat and I swallow it down. It would be cruel to have her cut open again, I say. I want her to rest. Fern looks unsure. Tate, do you think not? Tate, do you not think it's... No. I'm not going to be moved on this. There's no question as to why she died. That's not the issue here. The issue is that I wasn't on the roof with her. I didn't attack her with a broken bottle, and I didn't push her off the roof. Whatever her injuries, I wasn't the reason she died. That is true, Fern says, nodding, turning to Sarah. The issue is who did it. And from what Tate has told me, they don't seem to have any real evidence against her. She was there in the building, but so what? They can't prove Tate did this, because she didn't. She looks across the desk at Sarah. Right? I shoot Fern a grateful glance, touched by the faith in me. I envy her innocence as she sits there, legs crossed, her pen poised, her notebook open on her lap. The problem we have, says Sarah, is that Tate is the only person the police have in the building at the time of death. They have no CCTV and no other witness. They're not required to disclose any more to me at this stage, but I think we can safely assume that other than the ones we know about, there were no more CPF parts used inside the building that night. And there needs some kind of evidence or other grounds for suspicion to go on after anyone else. So, basically, they want Tate for this, Fern asks. It's looking that way. And how likely is it she'll be charged? It's difficult to say at the moment. The forensics will be key. But we know that Tate was on the roof, that she drank from the wine bottle that night before, smoked cigarettes. They'll be looking at other things too, Sarah says. Fibres of clothing, for example. Fibres from other people, of the victim. And, of course, blood and glass. But Tate walked on the roof after it happened, Fern points out. There's going to be glass in our shoe. There's bound to be. That's right. And that will be our defence. What will be trickier is if the glass or blood on the rest of her clothing, her jumper, her coat, her jeans. Fern shrugs. But there won't be, will there? There could be, Sarah warns. Small shards of glass can travel surprisingly far. Then there's blood. If Tate touched anything, the railing for instance, or lean against it, there's a chance of a transfer. But if that's the case, we can just explain that, right? We'll try. But our explanation is, Sarah hesitates, open to question. We only have Tate's word that she went up onto the roof after Maddie died. Fern's brown knits as she considers this. You mean they might believe her? It's something we have to consider, Sarah agrees, especially if the account that's been given to the police appears to have, she glances at me, inconsistencies. What inconsistencies? Fern asks sharply. Sarah looks awkward. I moisten my lips. I lied to the police, I told Fern, about Helen, about swiping her into the building. I didn't swipe her into the building. I left her in the lobby. I have no idea where she went after that. Fern looks horrified. She got into the building, Fern, I say. I know she did. So why lie about it? Because I needed the police to believe that there was someone in the building besides me. Why would you need to do that if you're innocent? I took a breath. Because I know they'd come after me as soon as they found out. Found out what? Fern asks. I clear my throat. They think I was fixated on Maddie's husband, Dan, my boss. I tell her. You know, like a crush. And were ya? No, but I say we were having an affair. What? Fern asks, in ridiculous. Are you serious? Yes. And so I clear my throat again. I had a motive, a good reason for wanting his wife dead. Fern stares at me. I didn't do it, Fern. I remind her. But why? Her voice is reduced to a whisper. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because of how it looks, obviously, I say, and because I'm ashamed. Fern continues to stare at me, as if I'm someone she's never seen before. I didn't kill anyone, I say again more gently. There was someone else there, besides me, that night, Helen. Helen. She got inside the building somehow. I'm sure of it. I can see Fern's inner turmoil. She desperately wants to believe in me. I'm her little sister. I'm not a killer. But she can't ignore the way it looks. Sarah and I sit in silence while she gazes at the page of her notebook, at all the notes she wrote there when she thought I was just somebody's fall guy. Now I'm the prime suspect, and with good reason. But I'm still her sister. Eventually she looks up again and shoots me a weak smile. She turns to Sarah, swallows, and says, "What's the plan then? What do we do?" Sarah nods, relief. Like I said, the forensics will be key. No, Fern says. We can't sit around waiting for the forensics to prove Tate could have done this. We need to get ahead. We need to find this Ellen. We need to prove that she was there too. That she could have got into the building and she lied to the security guard. She licks her fingertip and flicks over to the page in her notebooks, reading from the last list she made. We need to find her true identity because, Ellen Jones, well, that's clearly not a real name, is it? We need to talk to the taxi company, and most of all, we need to get CCTV from the nearby officers' shops and bars. Sarah looks pensive. We can do that, for sure, she says, finally. We can spend lots of time hunting for footage, but even if it exists, it's not guaranteed that anyone will let us see it. And even if we do get ourselves some images, then what? It won't prove that the woman we know as Helen Jones was anything but a random member of the public who went into the building and asked for directions from a security guard. I suggest we come at it from a different angle. I lift my head. What angle? We ask ourselves why. Why Helen Law? Why would Helen Law you to get to go to the building? Why kill Maddie? I shrug. Because she's crazy? Because she's depressed? Because she wanted to help me? Fern looks dubious. You're saying she killed your love rival, then disappeared, leaving you to take the blame? How would that bloody help you? It wouldn't, Sarah agrees. So maybe we're looking at something a little more tangible than that. Like what? I ask worrily. Well, I've been thinking about how she told you on the roof that night that she'd fucked up everything. Something about a relationship that had gone wrong and how it's all her fault. I nod yes. And then she showed all the interest in your relationship with Dan, Sarah continues. She kept asking about him, talking about Maddie and where she worked, about Maddie having everything and you having nothing. She inhales and looks at me quizzically. But maybe she was the one who had nothing, until she met you, that is. I take a breath, feeling Fern's stillness beside me. I know you might not want to hear this tape, but Sarah pauses, and then empathetically but firmly, is there any chance that Helen's messed up relationship was with Dan? I look at her aghast. You think Dan and Helen were in a relationship? Dan and Helen? I'm sorry, she says. I know it's not something you'd want to think about, but if I didn't mention it, I wouldn't be doing my job. Fern looks sideways at me, waiting. I can feel her sympathy. I look up at the ceiling, blinking back tears. Oh my God, Fern mummers. She saw you coming. What? I turn to face her, frowning. Think about it, Tate, Fern says. Fern speaks quickly. She snuck into the office party because that's where Dan worked. She was desperate, suicidal. She decided to kill herself there to make some kind of statement to him. But then she met you, and you told her that you were in a relationship with him. She came up with a better idea, to get Maddie up to the roof and push her off and frame you. That way, she'd have both of you out of the picture, leaving the field clear for her to win Dan back. Or maybe she knew about you and Dan already, Sarah suggests, and deliberately targeted you from the start. Fern's eyes widened. Maybe you were meant to go up to the roof to find Ellen that the night of the party. Maybe she was waiting for you to come out and talk her down. She deliberately handed you the wine bottle so that your DNA would be on it. She was already setting you up. She stops, pieces it together. That's how she knew the name of Dan's PA. That's how she knew so much about Maddie. She was in a relationship with him. Of course she was. She turns to Sarah. We need to talk to Dan, right? I feel my mouth open, but I say nothing. I wait. No. Sarah shakes her head. We can't. Dan's a prosecution witness. One of Tate's bail conditions is not to approach him. I could land her in jail. So what do we do? Fern asks. I'm thinking we tail him, Sarah says, turning to him. If you agree, that is. You mean Dan? I am thrown by this. She nods. It's perfectly legal. But why? Because if we're right that you're not the only person who has feelings for him, if Helen or whoever it is that killed Maddie did so for the reason that the police think you did, because she's in love with him. Yes, if that's the case, then that person is highly likely, one way or another, to still be around. Around him, I mean, Sarah adds. I pause, thinking. I take a breath. So she, Helen, or whoever, I agree, would either be stalking him, watching him, following him, or Sarah and Fern both look at me sympathetically. Or she could be with him, I say, inhaling deeply. She could be seeing him, meeting up with him, in a relationship with him, even. Yes, Sarah says. I'm sorry, but it makes sense, doesn't it? My idea is that if we put a towel on him, it should then lead us to her. I wait until I am well away from the hotel and have crossed Kensington Road into Hyde Park. The night is dark and crisp, the sky above starless and black. I stop on the path. Under the trees, I can hear the hum of machinery and screams of fairground rides from the winter wonderland echoing in the distance. I pull my phone out of my pocket, open my call history, and tap the number at the top. The strategy is to look for Helen Jones, I say, my heart pumping. Get a private investigator on it. That's okay, isn't it? Comes the reply. I mean, they're not going to find her. I know, I agree, but they might find you. I pause. How? I don't know, but Sarah wants to put a towel on Dan, so we need to be careful. Play it safe. Calls, but no texts, right? From now on, calls only. Got it. I shiver in the breeze and start walking again. You still there? Yeah, just need to keep walking. It's fine, T. Don't get paranoid. I think I'm still tired. I'm not. It's not surprising. You've been through a lot, but it's all gonna be fine. I promise. We're here for you. Both of you? 100%. Okay. Trust me. Trust in it, T. You can do this. We can do this. Together. Chapter 17. We wait. It's a long wait. Just over 6 weeks. The trauma of my arrest has left me hyper alert, hyper aware of my surroundings, or paranoid. Is there a difference? I don't know, but I'm permanently on edge. I start to feel as though I'm being watched as I leave my flat and walk to get the bus in the morning. It's only a few stops to Edgware Road to Scott Street, but each time the bus shudders to a halt and the door slides open. I expect to see Gallagher and Heaton waiting on the pavement, ready to step aboard and flash their badges at the driver before handcuffing me and dragging me back to the police cell. I spend Christmas Eve at Fern's. My entire family are there. My parents, my brothers and sisters and their children. Fern and Josh keep my secret, and my parents and siblings and know nothing about my bail status and the real reason behind my arrest. They all think it was a simply misunderstanding over an employment matter that I'm now helping the police with. This was Fern's idea. I know she hated lying to my mother, but also wanted to protect her and let her enjoy Christmas. Luckily for both of us, the police strategy is to keep the investigation under wraps for the time being and not to leak into the press. So we eat turkey and mince pies and play board games and biker as if everything's as normal. It feels safe and warm and comforting in Fern's living room with my family all around me, but I know this is just an illusion. It's not safe. Not yet. My job at the hotel keeps me occupied, thankfully, and the New Year's comes quickly. Business tails off in early January, but Fern wants to use the null for an early spring clean. I need the work, and I need to keep busy. So I go along with her suggestion. To my surprise, Fern's not afraid to get her hands dirty, and as we polish cutlery and tables, scrub floors, and sweep out fireplaces to discover all the things I've disliked about my big sister for the past 2 decades, I now see its strengths. I no longer see the showy, self-important businesswoman who pinches up at family gatherings, who swans about my parents' house talking on her phone and barking out orders. Instead, I take comfort in her competence, in her fortitude. She's tiny, 5 feet nothing, but indomitable with it. It's as if the police can't get me when I'm inside the hotel with her, and even though I know deep down that she couldn't prevent me from being arrested again, I'm reassured by her presence. This job is the only thing that stops me from holding up in my flat, where agoraphobia could easily take root. I can now see how these things begin. I don't know my sister by my fear, though. That would involve opening up to her, and I couldn't do that. Instead, I'm flippant and dismissive of my situation in her presence. I laugh as she chit-chats me for some inappropriate joke I've made, then sucks in her cheeks to stifle a smile. But I cry most evenings as I walk back home across the park or wait at the bus stop. I cry for Maddie, who has somehow become muddled in my head with my sister. I realise how close to the surface everything feels right now, and how I still have everything to gain as well as everything to lose. February arrives. The forensics have been fast-tracked, and finally Maddie's body is released by the coroner. Her funeral takes place on a cool, crisp Monday morning under a pale, bright winter sky. I imagine the flowers, the coffin, the hymns inside the church, the procession into the graveside. I imagine Dan in the dark suit and overcoat, his arms slung protectively around his daughter, freshly dug earth piled up on the grass behind them. Heaton and Gallagher standing silently on the path nearby. I don't know that there'll be a police presence, of course, but cops always come to funerals on TV, so maybe they'll come looking for me. I imagine them in the belted coats and dark trousers, respectful but observant. Their eyes scanning the horse chestnuts and fire tires, then bored of the burial ground. 3 days later, in the second week of February, I finally get the phone call I've been waiting for. I know what it is as soon as the phone rings. My legs are numb with trepitation, but my stomach weak. The next part has begun. Chapter 18. The forensics came back negative. The neck of the wine bottle used to kill Maddie had no trace of my DNA on it, and the cigarette butts aren't mine. There's no glass on my trainers, no blood or fibres from Maddie on my coat or any of my jumpers. There are no trace of me under Maddie's fingernails or on her clothing. There is no evidence to connect me with Maddie's death. I'm being released from police bail. Fern has ordered a bottle of champagne from the bar downstairs. She answers the knock on the door and shows the barman in. He places a tray with 3 champagne flutes on the tabletops, pops the corks, and sets the ice bucket down near the comfy seats by the fireplace. When he's gone, Fern picks up the bottle, pours the champagne, hands us each a glass, then inhales deeply. So that's it, she says. It's all over. That's it, Sarah agrees. Unless any new evidence comes to the light, of course. Fern looks sceptical. But that ain't gonna happen, is it? That's just something I have to advise you, Sarah tells her, looking at me. Fern gives me a lopsided smile. It's so weird, Tate. There's literally no evidence of you. It's like you were never there. I know, I say. Obviously, I spotted the glass on the ground, so I walked carefully around it. And they didn't take my shoes until 9 days later, of course, and I always just assumed the broken wine bottle was the same one we left there. But it can't have been, can it? I lift my eyes to meet Sarah's. No, she agrees. It can't have been. Are you sure you were there, Tate? Fern smiles. She's joking, but it makes me uneasy. The Temp 1 security pass was used inside the building. I remind them both quickly. This has to be confirmed by EPM, the block management company, and Dan has now told the police that he remembered loaning it to me. Right, Fern nods. And if you were trying to use a Temp 1 pass, you'd have no need to steal Jerry's. Exactly. Which, she says, raising her glass, is one more reason why my little sister is innocent. To Tate, who is innocent. Sarah raises her glass, and I feel myself flush. I'm a little embarrassed, but at the same time, I'm touched by my sister. It is so clearly over the moon for me. I wonder who did steal Jerry's pass, though? Fern asks. That's a $1 million question, I say. Fern gazes expectantly back and forth between me and Sarah and shrugs her shoulders. Well, never mind. It's excellent news. In fact, it's freaking amazing. I just don't know what to say except thank you, Sarah. Yes, thank you, Sarah, I echo. My eyes well up and my voice breaks a little. And thank you for both believing in me. Fern scrutinises me for a moment, then puts down her champagne glass, comes over to where I'm standing and wraps her arms around me. Come on, silly, she says. Of course we believed in you. I look over my shoulder at Sarah, who says, Congratulations, Tate. It's a great result. But her tone is flat, and there's something brittle about her smile. Fern lets go of me and begins asking Sarah questions. She's asking about the towel that Sarah put on Dan, and if anyone has been seen with him, and Sarah is telling her no. Fern's asking if we'll be told when they catch the person who killed Maddie, because she really wants to see them nailed after everything they've put me through. Sarah's saying that we won't find that one unless someone is charged. I nod coolly as they speak, but my insides are rolling. Something is wrong, is what I'm thinking. Sarah knows something. What does she know? Then Fern's phone rings and she pulls it out of her pocket. Oh God, she groans. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take this. Enjoy the champagne. Go drink it downstairs. Have some food. Have what you want. I'll settle the bill later. It's on me. Sarah leans down, glass in hand, gathers up her coat and laptop bag, then opens the door and steps outside. I do the same, grabbing the bottle of champagne as I go. We walk down the corridor to the lift together, in silence. Sarah presses the button, and we wait for a minute or two. So what's wrong? I ask finally under my breath. What do you mean? There's something wrong, I say. What is it? No, she says, smiling tightly. Nothing's wrong. So, that's really it, I ask. The end of the investigation against me? Sarah says brightly. Yes, that's it, all done. And when you talked about further evidence coming up to light, I persist, you don't know anything more? Anything you haven't told me, I mean? She shakes her head. No, it's all good, unless there's something worrying you. I hesitate. No, there's nothing. The lift door slides open and we walk inside. So, do you want to go to the bar? I ask quickly as the door slides. It seems a shame to waste your champagne, and actually, I still have some questions if you don't mind. She looks at me. Sure. We descend in silence, side by side. When the door opens, she follows me out and across the lobby into the bar. It's decorated in oak and mahogany with light grey walls, sleek floors, soft lighting. It's 4 in the afternoon and it's almost empty. I can see the same barman who brought us the champagne, and I catch his eye. He nods, acknowledges who we are, that we have drinks already. We choose a table on the podium, near the window in the lounge area, the furthest away from the bar. I slide it into my seat, placing the champagne bottle and my glass on the tabletop. Sarah pulls out a chair opposite me and puts her laptop on the floor beside her. So, you had some questions? Just one or two things, I say. I don't really know quite what it is I want to ask her, but I do know that I don't want her to leave just yet. Could you tell me exactly what the police told you? Sarah eyes me carefully and says, I think you know more than me, don't you? A flicker of fear makes me lose myself for a moment. Why would you say that? Don't you think I'm the one who should be asking why? Why what? Why would you tell me? She begins, then stops herself. Why would you let me, the police, your sister, everyone think that you killed Maddie? I told you I didn't kill Maddie, I corrected her. Yes, she agrees. That's what you told me. But at the same time, you did a really great job of making sure that everyone, including me, would suspect that you did. I look hard at her, waiting, thinking. Time stands still. What makes you say that? I ask again. A few things. Like what? I press her, then ask more gently. What is it you think you know? When I checked your custody record, it showed that you'd given the police your neighbour at number 316 as your nomination. That the one call you were allowed. You needed her to feed your cat, that's what you said. The name on the custody record is Claire. No surname, just a phone number. That's right, I say. Stupid of me. But in the stress of the moment, I just couldn't remember her last name. You also told me, Sarah continues, that Dan had been upset with you for swiping a complete stranger into the building. But it wasn't possible to swipe anyone else into the building, and Dan would have known that. So why would he have been upset with you? Why wouldn't he have believed you? He'd have called you out on that. I took a sip of my drink, trying to appear casual, but my hands are trembling, and I have to put the glass back down. And then there's the office party. The police say, and you agreed, that you met Jay Seeger and flirted with him outside on the smoking terrace soon after he'd finished his turn on the karaoke. But you also told me that he was still singing when he left the bar and climbed up the outer fire escape and found Helen on the roof. You told me that you were with her for the rest of the evening, so that doesn't fit with you meeting Jerry when you did. It's all explainable. Timing, that's all. Just timing. And then there's the PI I've had tailing Dan, who's come up with absolutely nothing. So, my PI took it upon himself to observe your building instead. My stomach turns. My feelings of being watched were real. I wasn't just being paranoid. There really was someone there. And what he did see was a woman with long, dark, wavy hair coming out of the flat 2 floors up from yours and getting into the driver's seat of your car. She had the keys to your Corsa. She drove your Corsa. She returned in your Corsa. Sarah pauses. He saw you together. I gaze at her, my heart racing. So, I figured that your call from the police station asking your neighbour to feed your cat was in fact also a tip-off to the person who was living there to let them know you'd been arrested. And I'm guessing that person is the same woman who walked into the lobby at 225 and distracted Kevin, the security guard, while Maddie was pushed off the roof. Sarah waits a moment, looking up at me, but I can't speak. I suddenly feel winded, punched in the gut. He took photos. She opens her bag and removes a file, then pulls out a sheet with a series of still images on it and slides it across the table towards me. I take it, but I don't need to look at it. I already know what and who I'm going to see. I know that Sarah is halfway there already, and that it's only a matter of time before she works out the rest. I close my eyes and inwardly curse Fern. Bloody Fern. Insisting of paying Sarah to continue representing me. But then, on the other hand, I look up at her. She's been so calm, so reassuring. I find her presence so comforting. It would be such a huge, massive relief to get it all out of my head and into her safe, capable hands. You can't tell anyone, I say, thinking quickly. You told me that. That was the first thing you told me. You told me that you had a duty of confidentiality towards me. Sarah mouth set a hard line. Her eyes are gentle. Absolutely, she says. That's right, I do. And you still aren't allowed to tell anyone what I tell you, even now? No. So long as we're talking about the past, about what you've done in the past, and not what you're about to do. What do you mean? Are you about to tell me that you are going to commit a crime? Are you about to involve me in something that's yet to happen? I think hard. No. Then I can't tell anyone. It's completely confidential. Are you sure? I'm sure. I take a breath. I told you what I told you because I needed to. To test it? She offers. I nod. Yes, exactly. I needed the police to believe it, and so I needed you to believe it too. If I told you the truth, you had given me different advice. I needed the interview to pan out naturally, according to plan. Sarah brings her glass to her lips and swallows. And what was the plan? I hesitate. This really won't go any further? She shakes her head. No, it won't. I can't. And even when you're no longer my lawyer, you still can't tell anyone? No, she says firmly. Even if I've done something very wrong, you're still not allowed to. Even that. She puts her glass back down. Correct. I think about this for a moment. And other people, are they protected too? You can't tell anyone what I tell you about them. I have to act in your best interests, so no, I can't repeat what you tell me in confidence, even if it's about someone other than you. And what if I choose not to tell you? What then? Nothing. You don't have to tell me, but I probably won't be able to act for you anymore. Do I need to? I ask. Do I still need my lawyer? Sarah looks at me. Maybe not. Maybe not for Maddie's murder, but if you've done something wrong, if you've broken the law, then it's possible that you might. This is what I wanted to be sure about. For a moment Sarah told me that the police weren't going to charge me. I'd known I wasn't quite ready to let her go. And if I tell you something different from what I already know, will you have to stop acting for me? I ask. It depends. On what? On a few things, but first, on your reasons. I reach for my glass. Play with the stern. Play with the stem. Then look up at the ceiling. Okay. I say finally in a whisper. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. Part 4. Ooh. Chapter 19. 9 months earlier. Maddie stood at the sink in her kitchen, stacking the dishwasher. It was mid-afternoon, and the sun had climbed high over the apple trees, bathing the room in a dancing yellow light. It was almost 10 years since they'd moved from their small house in the archway to this beautiful Victorian end of terrace in Islington. But still, every day, when Maddie came downstairs and walked through the door, she would see her kitchen with her fresh new eyes. She loved everything about it, from the marble worktops and oak floors to the sunlight view over onto the nature on the mature south-facing garden. She hadn't thought they could afford it, and hadn't dared to fall in love with it. It wasn't until Dan came home smiling and said he'd put it on offer that she'd realised quite how well he was doing at the bank. It was theirs within 6 weeks. It needed work, but not much. She'd been the one to paint the walls and strip the doors, to pick out the rugs, blinds, and the lampshades. Decorating wasn't really Dan's forte, and he was too busy with work in any event. But she hadn't minded. It was the most beautiful home she'd ever lived in, and she had been more than happy to be the one to make it their own. A gentle breeze drifted through the open patio doors as Maddie took an empty saucepan from the hob and placed it onto the rack. The dishwasher still wasn't full, so she walked down the hallway, looking left into the living room and right into the study, then headed upstairs and pushed open Emily's bedroom door. It was dark, as usual, and stuffy. Maddie rolled up the blind to let in some light and air. She glanced around the room hopelessly. The freshly washed ironed clothes she'd placed on Emily's bed yesterday morning were now in a heap on the floor, tangled up amongst all the dirty ones. On every available surface, beside bedside table, desk, chairs of drawers, were crisps and biscuit packets, empty sweet wrappers and lollipop sticks. Bowls and spoons. That's where all the bowls and spoons had gone. She picked them up, stacked them, then pulled the waste paper basket out from under the desk, gathering all the wrappers and cramming them into it, pressing them down. Her hand brushed something hard, glass. She pulled it out and looked at the label. It was an empty vodka bottle, a litre bottle. Maddie's pulse quickened. Was her 14-year-old daughter drinking vodka alone in her bedroom? If not, where? And why was the empty bottle in Emily's bin? Maddie scooped everything up and took it downstairs and into the kitchen, where she stacked the bowls and spoons into the dishwasher and switched it on. She sorted the contents of the waste paper basket into the waste and recycling bins, then pushed the vodka bottle under the sink behind the food waste caddy. She didn't want to worry Dan until she'd spoken to Emily about it, but she was worried. She had thought that everything was getting better. After all, when was the last time Emily had come home smelling of alcohol? Not for a while. Not since. Maddie's heart skipped a beat as the memory of that awful night came back to haunt her. The night that Emily hadn't come home. She and Dan had been frantic as the hours had ticked on with no sign of their daughter and no response from her phone. 10, then 11 o'clock had come and gone, then midnight. At 1, they'd called the police. An officer had arrived and had sat in the lamplight in the living room asking questions about Emily's friendship group, questions that hadn't brought the police any closer to finding her, because, as her usual friends, including her best friend Rosie, were safely at home. The night had seemed to last forever. Emily had finally turned up at dawn, drunk and apologetic, mortified to find a police officer in their house. Maddie still didn't know where her daughter had been that night. Maddie had refused to discuss it, other than to say that she'd been with a group of friends from school and that they'd meet some other kids from her year, and there had been alcohol and she hadn't realised how strong it was, and then she lost track of time. Maddie shut down the memory. It didn't matter where Emily had been that night. She'd been okay, hadn't she? And nothing had happened since to give Maddie and Dan any real reason for concern. There would be an explanation for an empty vodka bottle. Maybe it had been there from the time before. There was no reason to worry. She looked up at the clock. Her daughter would be home soon, and everything would be fine. Maddie suddenly felt dizzy. She grabbed hold of the worktop and steadied herself for a few seconds before walking carefully over to her favourite wing-back chair near the patio doors and sitting down. After a moment, she felt a little better. She turned to look out the garden at the trees, which were beginning to blossom, and the buds swelling and opening. Pretty white flowers now covering the jasmine they'd planted at the foot of the pergola in the hope that it would eventually climb up and obscure the beam at the front, which was on upside down. Maddie smiled to herself at the memory. She'd wanted somewhere shaded to sit, and so Dan ordered the pergola online last summer. He'd spent hours putting it together with his friend Jeff, but it had been a hot day and they'd had a few beers. The pergola was more than a little wonky, and when Maddie looked at it, it appeared to be moving very slightly. He wasn't very practical, it was true, but Dan was a good husband and a father. He often had to work long hours at the bank, but he was always there for her, and Emily had always been there for them. Whatever was going on at work, she knew that they came first. Ambitious as she was, it was their daughter who Dan was most proud of. They'd both wanted children passionately, she and Dan. It was almost the first conversation they'd had. They'd met through mutual friends, Jeff and Kaz, who'd thrown a dinner party with the sole purpose of introducing them together, which might have been awkward and embarrassing, but it wasn't. Dan had been the perfect dinner guest, breaking the ice with a joke or two, and then, as the wine began to flow, asking everyone about themselves. Which 4 famous people would you invite to a dinner party? What advice would you go back and give your 20-year-old self? He'd listened intently to the answers Maddie had given. Maya Angelou and Charlotte Bronte had been on a list, but Maddie couldn't remember who else. She'd said that she would advise herself to go with her instincts, but be more spontaneous. When it was his turn, Dan had thought about hard for several moments, throwing out several names, then changing his mind. He then asked if they'd mind waiting while he went back and advised himself to be more decisive, and everyone had laughed because the joke had been spontaneous and sincere rather than staged and corny, and Maddie couldn't take her eyes off his smile. After dinner, their hosts had got up to clear the dishes, then disappeared to check on the children, and Maddie and Dan had sat in the kitchen table and talked for over an hour. They had the same taste in music, both preferred white wine over red. Dan had told Maddie that he'd been an only child, and he said a lonely child. He longed for a big family of his own. Maddie, too, had been an only child and felt the same way. At the end of the evening, they'd shared a taxi home. They'd only been together 3 months when he proposed to her, reminding her with a grin that he'd wanted to be more spontaneous, but Maddie hadn't hesitated to say yes. She'd known that he was the one. Maddie had miscarried twice before she finally fallen pregnant with Emily. Both she and Dan were elated when, the third time, Maddie had managed to go full term. But after Emily, there was more miscarriages, and they'd eventually had to accept that she was going to be an only child, just as they had been. Emily had been an easy baby, a delightful toddler and a loving child. The terrible twos hadn't been that terrible. It was when Emily turned 12, somewhere in that summer between years 7 and 8, that she'd become the teenager Maddie had heard other friends talk about. "You've got all this to come," Kaz had warned her when her own daughter, Katie, had flounced out of a room, screaming at her mother that she couldn't wait to get out of this hellhole. Maddie hadn't believed Kaz until now. It wasn't all the time, though. It wasn't relentless. It was just that you never knew what mood Emily was going to be in. Maddie remembered Kaz telling her that with Katie, who was now in her 20s and perfectly lovely, she would dip a toe in the morning to see if she was going to be a shark or a shellfish, and if it was the former, she'd say as little as possible until the hormonal wave had passed. It was the hormones, those difficult hormones. And it wasn't easy being a teenager these days, with social media there to highlight every fault and failing, to compare her looks, her body and her mind to those of someone happier, thinner and more popular. It was a tough, new, very different world that her daughter inhabited. She knew. Maddie heard the front door open. Emily's voice called out, "Mum, in here, love." The kitchen door burst open. "Mum, guess what?" Emily was beaming. "My English teacher told us the results of our end of year exams, and guess what? I got an 8. Maddie stood up, pleased. "An 8, really? That's fantastic. Well done." Emily beamed. "I know, and my history tutor said we'd get the result back on Monday, but she said that no one had done badly. I'm so thrilled, Em." "Me too." Emily paused. "So, can I go to the Lidos, Mum?" "What? When?" "Now. Everyone's going." Maddie hesitated. "Who's everyone?" "It's just the usual crowd, Mum. You don't have to ask me every time. Just tell me some names so I know whose parents to call in an emergency." "What emergency? We're just going to the pool, Mum. Please don't make it a thing." "Well, I guess I know where you'll be," Maddie conceded. "So, okay." Emily's face lit up momentarily, then looked stricken. "What am I going to wear? I don't have anything. You have a swimsuit, don't you?" "Mum, that thing is way too small for me, and anyway, it's babyish. It has frills on it." "I've got a swimsuit," Maddie said. "It shouldn't fit. It should fit you." "Mum, everyone's going and I'll be the only one looking like an idiot." Maddie sighed. She didn't think her swimsuit was idiotic, but what does she know? "I need to buy something." "Okay, well, I'll give you some money. You'll find something down the Angel, and you can get the bus from there." "Mum," tears formed in the corner of Emily's eyes, "the Angels is in the opposite direction. By the time I've walked down there, found something I like, and get the bus to Parliament Hill, everyone will have gone home." Maddie took a breath, walked over to the patio doors, locked them, then took her car keys from the basket and working top. "Come on." Emily's eyes widened. "You'll take me?" Maddie smiled. I'll stop at Bromfield Street and you can run into H&M. If you're quick, we'll beat traffic and you can be at a little in an hour. Emily beamed and flung her arms around her mother, kissing her cheek. Thank you, Mum. I love you. You're the best mum ever. Maddie smiled. Go and grab a towel and some sunscreen and whatever else you'll need while I find my handbag. Okay. Emily nodded excitedly and ran upstairs. Maddie found her handbag on the chair in the study. Was she a pushover? She wasn't sure, but she wanted her daughter to be happy. Safe, yes, but happy too. She'd only been young once. She waited at the foot of the stairs. Emily was still rooting around in her bedroom, no doubt throwing some clothes on the floor, but never mind. You have to pick your battles, Maddie told herself. She thought about that for a moment longer, then walked back into the kitchen, took out an empty vodka bottle from behind the food caddy under the sink, and threw it into the recycling bin. Chapter 20. Early June, and I'd been invited to a school reunion. I'd read the invitation, my mind numb with dread. A reunion of a school I hated. What good could possibly come from this? A room filled of people I didn't know anymore. Married people with kids and careers and businesses and successful lives, and me in the worst possible place where my ex-classmates couldn't find me. Oops. Pushing my 40 and still single. Childless, qualified for nothing but my stalled acting career. My instincts was to delete the message. Instead, I spent a week ruminating, looking at everyone's profiles on Facebook, flip-flopping from accepting to declining, from curiosity to shame and back again. In the end, I knew I had to go. I couldn't bear the thought of hiding out at home, inconspicuous in my absence, forgotten, unseen. I'm an actress now, I figured. I've done some stuff. My life may have stalled a bit lately, but if anyone can blag their way through this evening, it should be me. So there I was, my stomach in knots, as I pushed open the door to the Pig and Whistle in Soho, where Tracy Carnegie, organised as ever, had summoned us all that night. I arrived late and flustered, disappointed by what I was wearing. Having had to put aside the ensemble I'd planned, my favourite dress, matching shoes I ordered too late online, and find a replacement on the 11th hour. My second choice of outfit was smart but understated. Jeans, boots, and a blue silk shirt. I was too covered up for the warm evening, and I'd had to tie up my long fair hair, my best feature, to hide the grey roots that, in my panic and deliberately over my outfit, I'd left myself insignificant time to touch up. As bad luck would have it, the first person I saw was Annabelle bloody Mercer, the class bully and my nemesis. She was standing near the bar with Kayla Crossley and Caroline Bolton. Although it took me a moment to recognise everyone, Kayla, in a little black dress, had aged well over the 20 years since I last seen her. Her bobbed dark hair and pink lipstick just came the same as she used to wear in school. Annabelle looked glamorous, tall, slim, and angular, with fashionably cropped bleached white hair, her shoulders blades protruding elegantly from a long and expensive-looking low-backed dress. Caroline, in a glittery bosom-revealing tank top, was glossy and voluptuous. She'd put on weight, but, like everyone else, was chatting away confidently, seemingly quite comfortable in her additional skin. As I wavered uncertainly in the doorway, Kayla lifted her head and smiled at me. A genuine smile of pleasure, it seemed, which gave me courage. I smiled back. She waved me over, and in a single beat, it was too late to change my mind and reverse out again. As I approached, Annabelle followed Kayla's gaze and looked round. Oh my God, it's taken Silla.
Jim!
Yo. Sorry, Dad shouted at me. Bitch. What was I? Sorry. Oh my God, it's taken Silla, she exclaimed. Jesus Christ, look at you. Her tone was disparaging, intentionally so, of course, just as it had always been. I stepped back, looking for an opportunity to escape, but Kaylee took my arm, drawing me closer. Reaching behind Caroline, she grabbed a glass of Prosecco from a tray beside the bar and pressed it in my hand. It's so good to see you, Tate, Kayla said. How are you? What have you been up to? Me? Oh, well, not a lot, I answered truthfully, caught off guard by the thrown so abruptly into the spotlight. I think you're being a teeny bit modest here, smiled Kaylee. I saw your profile on Facebook. You're an actress. What have you been in? Anything we'd know? I hesitated, feeling blindsided. Annabelle was looking at me intently, her eyes narrowed. Kaylee was smiling warmly. Caroline took a slug of Prosecco. They were all waiting. I had the stage. Oh, this and that, I said. Theatre, mainly a bit of TV. TV? Wow. Okay, like what? Kaylee pressed me. Oh, I said the usual. I don't want to brag. Oh, come on, tell us. EastEnders, Corrie? I've done neither. What if they found out? Well, there was this ad you might have seen. I said, Carpet Palace? I was the woman on the flying carpet, the one that threw the window and landed on the couple's living room. They looked back at me blankly. Oh, wait, yeah, I know the one you mean. Was it like a few years ago now? 10, I admitted, but that's my well, that's one everyone remembers. I don't, said Annabelle. I never watched the ads, said Caroline. You don't have time when you've got kids. Ad break means you get up and sort the kids out. Have you got kids, Tate? Are you married? No kids, I said jovially. Just my cat. Annabelle let out a snort of laughter. Crazy cat lady, that's perfect. Just what I'd have guessed. I had a forced little laugh, although I was feeling from light-hearted. I have one cat, I objected, and she doesn't define who I am. And, I continued, crazy cat lady, I mean, what is that? It's just a pejorative term invented for men for women who don't want to have sex with them, which, as a woman, I waged my finger playfully, we really shouldn't buy into. I was met with a few blank faces. And besides, that's not me anyway. Besides, I'm not lonely, and I have sex. I mean, I'm not, lonely. I'd said it twice, sex. I told them I had sex. The second I'd said it, I knew that I'd given Annabelle the opening she'd been waiting for. We remember, she said pointedly. A smirk of recognition had also spread across Caroline's slightly smudged features. Wait, what do you remember? Carly asked. That Tate like sex, Annabelle said. Caroline literally doubled up with laughter, tipping forward so that she had to steady herself by grabbing Annabelle's arm. Kaylee looked uncomfortable. It's okay, Tate, she began. No one thinks. I have a boyfriend, I blurted out. Caroline stopped laughing and looked at me with interest. Your status says you're single. I smiled back, unnerved. How much did they know about me? Had they seen my show reel? Had they been looking me up? I keep it quiet, I said quietly, for professional reasons. Annabelle narrowed her eyes. What reasons? Caroline frowned. Is he an actor? Kaylee asked. Oh my god, are you dating someone famous? Yes. This was good. I lowered my eyes, fixing them on my Prosecco glass, and flashed them at an ingenic smile. Oh my god, you are! Who is he? Kaylee pressed me. Sorry, I shook my head, still smiling. I can't say. Oh, come on, we won't tell anyone, we promise. I laughed. I can't. Give us a clue. Caroline persisted. Is he British or American? I hesitated. British. Fuck. American. Why didn't I say American? That would have been so much bigger. Better void to lose a boyfriend in. But it was too late. Annabelle was looking at the disbelievingly. I felt myself flushing and lifting my arms, running my sleeves across my forehead to wipe away the beams of perturbations that were gathering on my brow. So, what are you in at the moment? Kaylee was asking, but Annabelle's expression had thrown me and I couldn't think straight. I ran my tongue over the roof of my mouth. It was dry. I needed to drink of water. I glanced towards the bar, but the staff was serving down the other end. I took a slurp of Prosecco instead. I'm resting at the moment. Resting? It means she hasn't got a job, said Annabelle. No, I do, I corrected her. I temp during well, whenever I'm not acting. Do you? Caroline asked with her incredulity. Oh god, wrong answer. Pay the bills. Doesn't your famous boyfriend help you out? Oh fuck. Never, I say. I always pay my own way. But my hand was trembling visibly. Careful, said Annabelle, you're spilling your free drink. Carlo reached out and studied my glass. I stepped back and smeared the puddle of Prosecco under my toe and my boot. Sorry, is there a kitty somewhere? Do we need to... Are you meant to chip in? Here, kitty, kitty, Annabelle said under her breath, and Caroline snorted. Even Carla was smiling this time. Don't worry, we're just teasing, said Caroline. The Prosecco is on me. Oh, thank you, I said. I'll have to get you one after. No need, Caroline cut in. So what about you? I asked, because I felt that's where we were heading. What do you do? I'm a marketing manager for a big engineering firm, Caroline said proudly. And I'm a mum of 3 boys. Nathan's 10, Kurt's 7, and Callum is 5, she paused. I don't really need to work, to be honest. My husband is a company director of our home is paid for, but I'm like you, Tate. I need my independence. Her eye sparkled. It's good to keep your hand in, isn't it? Have your own income. Absolutely, I agreed. I turned to Carla. And you? I'm a mum too, she says. I have 2 girls. They're older. They're both at uni. I run my own interior design company. Wow, that must be fun. You get to, and Annabelle's a producer, said Caroline, cutting in again. She cleared her throat. She might know your boyfriend. My legs weakened underneath me. I turned to Annabelle. What do you produce? Movies, she said loftily. I work for a producer and distribution company in Paris. But her voice was bored. She knew I was fake. She was barely looking at me. My heart sank. Annabelle Mercer was a film producer. She was a successful, bloody film producer. This is just so unfair. My first instincts had been right. I shouldn't have come. I'd messed up the minute I opened my mouth. Are you okay, Tate? Carla asked me. You seem a little distant. I'm fine, I said. I just need the loo. I'll catch up with you in a bit. I weaved my way through the crowd in the bar towards the sign that directed me to the toilets. Over the far corner, in a huddle, I could see several others from my year. Some of the people from my core subject sets, and some of the girls from my A-level classes who had always been perfectly nice to me. I hesitated, contemplatively joining them, but I just couldn't face talking myself up to anyone else. I needed a cigarette, so I headed out the door looking for a smoking area. I went up the flight of stairs to where the toilets were, but then I saw a sign leading to the terrace, and I went up another flight. The terrace was on the top floor. I pushed open a door. It was empty, and there was no view, just a rooftop with a load of chimney stacks looking onto more chimney tops, and another terrace with on the adjacent building. The cool, fresh air was a relief. I lit a cigarette and breathed in deeply for a moment. Then I stepped forward, moving a little nearer to the edge of the building, curious to see how close I could get, what the view was like down the street below. I gripped the railing that bordered the terrace and peered over, feeling my stomach somersault as I looked down. And then, to my right, out the corner of my eye, I saw a woman with dark wavy hair. She climbed up and was sitting on the ledge of the wall, her legs dangling in midair. Hey, I called out. I don't think you should be sitting up there. It's not safe. You could easily fall. She turned her head slightly towards me. I stepped closer. Oh my God, I said. Are you? Is that Helen? My God, Helen, what are you doing up there? That is the end. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye.